Hello, Sue Ricks here, talking about why we might want to know about and use the skill of foot reading and hand reading. So foot reading and hand reading. And it's not palmistry, it's about how to read the signs and the indicators. I'm just about to drop my chart there. Whoops. It's about the signs and the indicators that we can see and read on people's feet. And I don't want to talk about, how you read it. I just want to talk about why you might want to know about it, because I think it's really misunderstood. And I think it's really great if you do know how to understand what's being said through people's feet or people's hands, because there are so many different benefits to it. So imagine that you're just struggling in some way, or you've got a friend that's struggling. Maybe you might be able to see on their feet, maybe they are saying, I'm a bit fed up. But actually, if you could see on their feet or their hands, you might go, oh, you're really, really fed up. Oh, this isn't just a little something, this is actually quite a big something. How can I be more assistance? How can I be more supportive to you? Or if it's about yourself, it's like, oh, I thought that, that I was just sort of glossing over it, but actually this is something I could really do with sorting out. Maybe it would be good to go and see somebody who can support me or get some extra therapy. I remember when I first met my partner, I vividly remember I refused when I first met him, I refused to look at his feet. It's like, no, I'm not doing any foot reading. I just want to meet. And we'd been together for several months, and one day I happened to notice that his feet were really quite an obvious colour. And I'm like, oh, right. We seem to be fine. Everything seems to be fine. I wonder what's actually going on. And it just gave me the opportunity to go, right, I need to give him some space, just need to give him a bit of love and support. I'm not going to go delving, I'm not going to ask any questions because I just happen to have seen it. I'm just going to be more loving and more supportive. And then it was probably about 6 days later when he said, something's been on my mind, this has happened outside of our lives and it's caused me an issue and this is why. And I'm like, there we go, that's what I saw several days ago. Now, it could have been that I'd have ended up by, saying something or causing some, like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, and actually just cluttering his head with things that wouldn't have helped. And just by seeing that there were some indicators on his feet, I didn't need to go digging or delving. It wasn't my issue, it was there, but it meant that I could be kinder and more understanding and more loving and supportive and probably more patient and more tolerant and all of those things that help any relationship. So it can be really helpful to us to see in our nearest and dearest. You might see something with your children. You might be able to spot that, maybe somebody's just sort of picking at their hands. This is a sign, or maybe they're just doing this. Or maybe they've got a plaster on their foot or a band-aid on their hand or something. None of these things are things that can be just glossed over and just ignored. They can be. It's just so really lovely to be able to go, okay, so how can I support me? How can I support you in more kind and understanding ways? One of my things that I'm always saying, it's about patience and kindness, and that's from my lovely friend Don. Patience and kindness, my love, is one of his phrases, and I love that and I carry it forward. He's well into his 90s, and I just think he's the most incredible guy, and that's just a great strap phrase. So I think a strap phrase for foot reading and hand reading could be having more kindness and more patience with ourselves and others. And I remember hearing about a nurse who was at the station. She was sitting and she happened to be opposite the bed of a lady who was just sitting there with this lovely smile on her face. You may have heard me talk about this before. She was sitting with this beautiful smiling look on her face, as if everything was all serene and good in her world. And yet there were real signs and indicators on her feet, which meant that the person who was sitting, the nurse who was sitting there, was able to go, okay, so you're sitting there with a lovely, beautiful, serene smile on your face. I know from looking at your feet that you are not okay inside. So she went over and she started just chatting with the lady and giving her some extra time, which was in the days when, you know, you could do that. And actually, sometimes we can perhaps all find a few moments, or those just a loving touch, or just to be there, or a smile on your face. And I ended up with the lady explaining why she wasn't actually okay, and she was doing her best to be kind and brave and lovely. And if the nurse hadn't have seen that, she'd never have known that that was an issue that was going on behind the scenes. So you can really use foot reading and hand reading. You can use it for yourself. You can find out, you know, how are you doing? Are there any things that you want to address? You know, we're all amazing at just like brushing stuff under the carpet and going, yeah, I'll sort that another day. Does it need sorting? Does it need addressing? Do you need to acknowledge it? Do you need to find peace, love and acceptance with it? Is it, you know, I run the Surix Academy. There's loads of self-help tools on there that you can use to get rid of the issues and to be able to resolve past stuff. You know, is there something that it's time to deal with now? Is it stuff that you didn't even know was there? It's like, oh, okay, well, let's address it then. Maybe you notice that you are, you know, maybe you are pulling at one of your fingers or scratching, or you have cut yourself, or maybe I remember my son saying, Mum, what does it mean when you bash this toe? And I told him and he was like, oh, yeah, right, okay, better sort it then. I was like, yeah, fantastic. You know, if we understand it and we can share that knowledge with others, we can help others to be more available for themselves as well. It's just brilliant way of being able to stay in touch with yourself and be able to be kinder to yourself. And also you can spot it things within your family. And, you know, we can be more loving and patient and tolerant and actually, you know, maybe things are bothering people, or maybe they've even told us that they're bothering them, and we haven't really logged it or paid attention to it. And yet with foot reading and hand reading, you can go, right, okay, right, this is bothering you. It's time that I kicked in to see how I can support you or help you, or maybe you would like my advice, maybe you wouldn't like my advice. I could say to you something like, is something bothering you, or is this thing bothering you? Would you like to talk about it? Is there anything we can do about it? And remember that we can only ask. Nobody has to do anything just because we think it's a good idea. And if you are using reflexology and you are working with people's feet, or chiropody, or maybe you work with shoes, or, you know, anything that gives you access to people's feet in the health and beauty care industry, you know, this is something which is just amazing to be able to know. I know when the lady who was doing my pedicure found out that I knew about foot reading. I mean, I used to go for my sessions. I used to go to her salon, and she used to literally pick my brain all the time of, oh, I've seen this lady with these feet. They look like this. And she used to draw me diagrams. And after a bit, I was like, actually, I come here for my pedicure. If you'd like to know more about it, I have written a book. It's called Fantastic Feet. It's about foot reading and hand reading. I now run online courses. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to find out about it from me. There's lots of different ways to find out it from other amazing foot readers that you'll heard of, like Jane Sheehan and Maroche Kruchek, and so many other people who teach about it as well. So if you are looking into finding out about foot and hand reading for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your clients, just because you're interested in helping and supporting people, then knowing about foot reading and hand reading, it's just a joy. It's just wonderful to be able to help and love and support people, you know, just by knowing these are my charts that I use, just by knowing, what can you see and how can you see them, and that's signs and indicators on the grids and the colours and toe positions and depth of colour and nails and the positions of certain different things, and it all links into people, and this all makes a difference to us as people. So learning more about foot and hand reading is just the best ever. And I'm delighted, I'm going to be teaching again on Wednesday, and I'm so looking forward to it because there's so much that we can know about it, and people ask me questions all the time, and it's just an absolute joy to be able to know a little bit more about it and to be able to help people in a more meaningful way. So I wish you lots of love from Sue Ricks at SueRicks.com. Until next time, bye.